Hi guys, it's John from DoubleSleeved here, and welcome to a limited view of the new core set 2021. Using Wizards of the Coast's uncommon guides, such as the card right next to me, we're going to go through the 10 archetypes and then a few other potential bombs that you might be pulling in pack 1, pick 1, or even potentially 2 or 3, and just seeing, is it worth building around, what backs it up, what sort of cards have we got to look at in each of those 10 archetypes, and yeah, is there any way we can play limited as effectively as possible using the information without actually having any of the cards in front of us yet? So first of all, the first archetype is blue-white flyers. So we can see what the Wizards of the Coast do is they produce a bunch of these uncommons, normally in dual colours, just to sort of give you a bit of a hint as to what kinds of decks you could draft. And this is almost exclusively draft and sealed, but draft would be where you'd really want to use this information. And so I've started here, and we've got Wacher of the Spheres. If you've not seen the run through of each of these cards, then make sure you check out the spoiler videos that I've done, because there are loads of great cards, and I'm not going to be talking about every card in a huge amount of detail. But what you've got here is a 2-mana 2/2 with flying that makes flying creatures cost less, and when you cast flying creatures, this gets bigger. Very simply, incredibly good card in terms of playing blue-white flyers. And so what sort of cards have we got backing it up? Some of these cards will work in multiple archetypes, which is where you can start thinking about, okay, does it keep my options open, especially when they are monocolor. So Stormwing Entity is another great one, which is both blue-white flyers, because naturally it's got flying on it, and it has some scry effects and other things which will be useful in blue-white flyers. It's only a 3/3 for 3 blue, so it's not the most efficient. However, it does have the extra prowess rule, and if you cast an instant or sorcery, then this will cost you only 1 and a blue, which is pretty incredible, especially when you can get like Opt, which is a 1-mana instant, which will help make this a 4 total with the Opt. So pretty crazy. But this will also work in the prowess, which we'll come on to a little bit later on. You've also got Baneslayer Angel, which is a nice white flyer. It's a 5/5 for 3 white with your first strike, lifelink, and protection, which the protection from demons and dragons isn't necessarily huge, but there are some decent ones in here. So that's your blue-white flyers. Now, in terms of cards that back it up, across the whole of the new set, there are 20 cards that are very specifically designed to be blue-white flyers. Again, when you're drafting, a lot of these you're going to pick up multiples of, and there are going to be other cards. This is not including your generic cards that are going to be good in every deck or any deck, and this is just sort of the ones you'd really want to be focusing in on. In terms of rares and mythics and uncommons, you've got a total of 10 that are pretty good. So out of those, so half of the cards you're going to want to draft are going to be uncommons, rares, or mythics, which kind of gives you an idea of how viable it could be. And 2 of those, which we've already looked at here, are kind of your bomb cards. So that's kind of how I'm going to break this down in terms of archetype. You can see which ones, and at the end I'll give you a bit of a summary of which ones I think are going to be the most important and probably easiest to draft. So next we've got blue-black Reanimator. This is the Wizards of the Coast spiel. Obsessive Stitcher is your uncommon, which is 1 blue-black. And you draw a card, discard a card, fine. Straight away, not a bad ability, and one that would work with another archetype, which we'll talk about in a bit. But the main thing about this card is your 2 blue-black, tap, sacrifice, Obsessive Stitcher, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you're going to reanimate something incredibly large. Cards that will work with this, you've got Archfiend's Vessel, which comes onto the battlefield with the special effect if it entered from the graveyard, or if you cast it from the graveyard, exile it and create a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying. So you could get this out of your graveyard and get a 5/5 flyer, which is significant when you think this could be done on turn 5 for 4 mana. useful, especially even potentially as a reaction. You've got Liliana, interestingly enough, and a number of these work again with each other, and you'll hear when I go through all the archetypes how they can all work together. So this one, you're looking at kind of your number of cards in your graveyard as your second ability, and at the very bottom, at the beginning of your combat, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste. So the ultimate ability is all about recursion. So another really good one, you're looking at, in blue, some big creatures. So pulling this out of your graveyard on turn 5 is an 8/8. Difficult to get rid of it because it costs 3 more for your opponent to target it. And yes, it creates these 1/1 red pirate creatures, but they're just going to get eaten. It's more about the fact that this is a big 8/8 that could come down quite early on. And then another one which is probably more synergistic is this Wacher of Waves, which is a 7/7. Opponent's creatures get smaller, and in order to get it into the graveyard, it's got the 1 blue discard. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand and 1 in your graveyard. So what you're getting here is a turn 2 play before you then turn 3 Obsessive Stitcher to potentially even turn 4 sacrifice it to pull Wake of the Waves out of the graveyard. So again, from a reanimated perspective, you've got 14 cards, so the least supported in terms of generic cards, but again, there are cards that will work in multiple archetypes. And again, you've got 10 of those are your uncommons and your mythics, and 2 of those are your big bombs, which we've just looked at. Next up, you've got Black-Red Sacrifice. Starting with Direfleet Warmonger, which is at the beginning of your combat on your turn, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, Direfleet Warmonger gets +2/+2 and trample, so it becomes a 5/5 trampler on your attacking step, which will be turn 4, which is, you're not going to argue with that, especially at that time in the game. They may only have small blockers, so the trample is going to be effective, but can be done each turn. Sacrifice is a powerful effect. The fact this is a free sack outlet, it says another, so it's not saying over and over again necessarily, but useful. In this, you've got Hobblefiend. Now, this one's just a common. It's a 2-mana common, but it's already got trample, and it's a tap, and it's a 1-mana sacrifice a creature, put a 1/1 counter on Hobblefiend. So it's not 1 turn effect. This could be a turn 2 play that you then turn 3 grow, and turn 4 grow, and turn 5. You can grow this as much as you want. I think that this card is a good card to be looking out for. Oh, throat's really sore. Apologies if I'm a bit crackly. Another one, Gourmand. It's an uncommon, this one. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature. So you're going to sack it in order to play it. It has flying and already trample again. And when it enters, you're making your opponent sacrifice creatures. So it may be a bit costly. You're 6 black for a 5/5, but it is a flying trampler. And if you want to sacrifice creatures anyway, dead useful. You've also got Liliana's Devotee, which, if a creature's died, i.e. if you sacrificed, you may pay 1 and a black to create a 2/2 zombie, which becomes a 3/2 zombie because of its zombies you control. This also works with, and again we'll come on to the other archetypes, and again, when Liliana Standard Bearer enters the battlefield, draw X cards, or X number of creatures that died under your control this turn. So again, if you're sacking a bunch of your creatures, you're going to draw a bunch of cards. Another useful card. So with Black-Red Sacrifice, you've got 17 cards across the board, of which 9 are uncommon or rare, specifically. And again, some of these I have or have not counted, so these are all uncommons, and that's your rare. There are other cards that will work, and again, we'll come on to the ones that will be more generic graveyard decks. But specifically in Sacrifice, it'll work with Reanimator, which is the previous we've seen. Blue black Reanimator and black-red Sacrifice will work well together. But specifically for this, it's not particularly well supported. Next one we come on to is probably going to be a bit of a favourite for many people. Red-green Ferocious, which is obviously your 4 power and up creatures. Leafkin Avenger is your tap and add green for each creature that's got power 4 or greater. So it's already tapping for green because of itself on turn 4. But if you've got other power 4 creatures, there you go. And then you can then sync that mana in with a 7 red. Deals damage equal to power to target player or planeswalker. So again, these cards are all about big creatures. You've got Elder Gargaroth, which has 3 abilities and 3 keywords. Create a beast. You can choose one of. Create a beast, gain 3 life and draw a card. It's also Vigilance, Reach and Trample. I mean, it's a huge bomb. It's a 6/6 of 5. This is the sort of card that you could dream of drafting. It starts your draft off so open. You can go life gain with it. You can go card draw with it. You can just go big, ferocious, stompy creatures. It's just a great one to pull out on turn 5. So definitely this sort of card will work in a number of archetypes. Garruk, another one that's, you know, gaining +3/+3 and trample as a +1 ability on turn 4. Also has the create beasts and then put loyalty counters on if they have more creatures than you do, and eventually you can search your library for a creature card on your end step and put it onto the battlefield, which is a bit of a crazy one. So a couple of bombs there. They are big bombs though, not to be discounted at all. As you'd have expected, 23 cards are specifically geared towards this sort of large card, ferocious archetype. And there are 10 commons and uncommons, of which you got those 3 bombs, which are significant. You'll see other cards that will be considered bombs as well throughout. Obviously, like there are the blue cards, which are high power, and there are plenty of high power cards. It's just whether or not you would consider those to be significant enough. Next up, we've got green-white counters, +1/+1 counters. An interesting card here, Conclave Mentor. If you put 1 +1/+1 counter on a creature, instead put 1 additional. It also gains you life when it dies. So, +1/+1 counters, jury's out very much as to whether or not it's worth archetyping around +1/+1 counters. There is quite a lot that backs it up, a decent amount anyway, which you'll see. It's just whether or not it's significant enough. So Basri Get straight away is your put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. It gains indestructible. That's your +1 on turn 3. It also has the non-creature tokens landing. You could argue this is a bit of a go wide, which is another archetype, but definitely think with the counters you've got that combination. A great card you want to draw. Huge bomb if you get it. Perfect for you in pack 1, pick one. You're not too honed into one specific archetype. You've got cards like this, and there are some commons and uncommons that work really well. Put a 1/1 counter on a creature, then double the 1/1 counters on that creature, which as a turn 3 instant or even as a bit of a combat trick really significantly could increase, especially if you've already got the Conclave Mentor out. And like a common, Pride Morkin. It's a 2/1 for 3 mana, but when it enters you put a 1/1 counter on a creature, and each creature you control with a 1/1 counter has trample. Straight away, smashing out cards. You've turn 2'd Conclave Mentor. You've then given it a 1/1, which becomes 2 1/1s, and it's now got trample. You know, some great synergy here. Quirion Dryad, whenever you cast a spell that's white, blue, black, or red, put a 1/1 counter on it. So you've seen there's plenty of white cards, green cards. This is pushing you into any other archetype as well. And then Scavenging Ooze for 1 green, exile a card from a graveyard, which is when you look at the sort of graveyard cards that are coming out. If it's a creature card, put a 1/1 counter on it, and gain a life. So it's a 2/2 that for 1 green becomes a 3/3. Sink as much mana into it as you want, and it can just grow. Great card. And then another one. Wildwood Scourge enters with +1 with X +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on another non-Hydra creature, put 1 on this card. So loads of cards, as you can see. There are 18, so you know, stacks up fairly well. But of those, you do have 13 uncommons, rares, and mythics, of which you've got a bunch of big bombs, 3 big bombs in there that you would really be keen on playing within a counters archetype. Indulging Patrician is our next, which sits under white-black life gain. You've got a flyer with lifelink. There are loads of lifelink cards. I've not added any card that's got lifelink becomes a synergistic card, because although arguably it does, there are plenty of those. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. So sort of a wearing down effect. And we have seen some of these cards work fairly well. Will work great with some of the other cards that I've already talked about. Definitely feel like life gain is a thing in total. So again, a life linker that draws you cards. You know, if you pack one, pick one for sure. This card, you're gaining whenever you get attacked, which you know it's going to happen in limited by 2 or more. Then you draw a card, and then whenever they cast a second spell, which they're going to want to do, you draw a card. And the lifelink is where it fits in. This card is silly. I've talked about it before. Vigilance lifelink, 1/1 for 1, and you tap it and create a 4/4 angel when your life total is more than 7 above, or 7 or more above where it started. So you've gained 7 life in the first couple of turns, and now you're tapping this each turn for a 4/4 white angel. You've then got Veto, which is incredibly popular already. Lots of demand for this card. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Crazy. And then you know, give all your creatures lifelink for 5. Silly card. So life gain wise, you've got 16 cards that work. 8 of which are common. 8 of which are uncommon, rare or mythic, and there are, as you can see there, a few bombs which, if worked correctly, if you really built around this archetype, could definitely work well. Next up, an unusual one for me, Black-Green Morbid is what they're calling it. All about creatures dying, especially on your side of the board. Not particularly well supported. Couldn't find any real sort of rares that work specifically for this archetype. Again, if you want your creatures to die, there's lots of creature cards that sacrifice and that will die, you know, Death Touch and things like that. But if we're talking about the payoffs, you know, at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, draw a card. It's a 5/4 for 5. You know, it's okay. And that's about, like, I really couldn't find too many cards. You know, you've got 15 cards in total that would work in some way. Many of those are just overlaps with other cards. And then you've got 6 uncommons that weren't really noteworthy. So I'm not sure it's an archetype I would draft as a specific archetype. I'd probably add green in to either blue-black or red-black and add a card like this in. But I think if that was my pack one, pick one, I'd be really wanting to see a better rare. Law Scale Kotal is the next and probably most supported archetype, which is blue-green card draw. As you can see, whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on this. 3 mana, 2/2, draw a card, gain a 1/1 counter. So you can see there is counter synergy as well here, but it's mainly around that card draw. So you've got the new Teferi, which +1 is draw a card, discard a card, and can be done at any time, as well as target creature phasing out and taking extra turns. Another Teferi themed card, when you would draw a card, draw 2, other than your first card draw. I mean, the fact you've got to draw a card each turn, just remember that. An uncommon, whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1 when you do tap or untap target creature. And this is a 4/6 for 6, that you're tapping the opponent's creatures when you draw your first card. You know, there are so many tapping and untapping effects. I feel like this card is silly. Another one, 4 mana, 2/3. Whenever you draw a card, it gets +2/+2 at the end of turn. So again, you draw your first card. If this is on the battlefield, you draw your first card each turn. This becomes a 4/5 on turn 5 without any other additional card draw as an uncommon. And a common, a 5 mana 4/4 with reach, that as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, it gets 0/+2 and has vigilance. Can't overstate the fact that vigilance reach becomes a 4/6 just for drawing 1 more card. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 2/2 green cat creature token. It's a 2 mana 1/2 that draws cards, and at the end has, for 6 mana, creature control have base and power toughness XX, where X is the number of cards, which if you're in a card draw deck is going to be significant. There are 31 cards in this that draw you cards, and I'm not just talking about any old opt here, like really core card draw cards that say draw cards, not put cards into your hand. You've got 16 uncommons and rares and mythics with, as you can see there, a bunch of rare and mythic bombs that you would be absolutely snapping up, and a lot of them are monocolour, like your Teferi and your Jolrail. Yeah, definitely. And another one that's easily combinable with Ferocious or with the next archetype, which is blue-red prowess, blue-red spells, if you will. Your uncommon here is a sorcery, which has create an XX blue-red weird creature token, where X is the number of instant sorceries in your graveyard, and then return an instant sorcery from your graveyard to your hand, then exile this card. So you're playing this late a game. It's a little bit like Zenith Flare in terms of gaining for having a bunch of instant sorceries in your graveyard. It just doesn't do direct damage, but it does create a significant sized creature. Could be played earlier for just a blocker or just to have a creature out. It is only a sorcery though, sorcery speed, so you're not going to do it on your opponent's turn. But it also gets you an instant sorcery out of the graveyard. So as you can already see, if you're doing some sort of self-mill graveyard theme, then you're definitely not going to be far away with a card like this. So Challenger, the new Challenger says discard your hand, which straight away is useful if there's a bunch of instant sorceries in there that you can't cast. Then exile the top 3 cards of your library until the end of turn. You can play those cards, or it deals 2 direct damage. So I've added a bunch of direct damage spells in here because there is a lot of synergy there. And then it's ultimate. Search your graveyard and library for cards for any number of red instant or sorcery cards. Exile them. Shuffle your library. You may cast them this turn and add 6 red mana. So that's basically just cast a load of direct damage. So you've got this. I absolutely love this card. Loved it when I first saw it. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponent this turn. So you can deal 5 non-combat damage and pay 1 red for this 6/6 Trampler. That whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to a creature or planeswalker. So it's just going to continue to board wipe as you play direct damage, and can be played early because of that. It's not even a prowess card, it's just a silly, silly card. Another red, when a source deals damage, it deals triple instead. It's a 6-drop, big enchantment. Fun little common card. Create 2 1/1 red Goblin Wizards with prowess. So you throw out an instant speed card that gets you 2 1/1s that can grow very quickly. I've not chucked in a load of the prowess cards. A lot of those are common and uncommon. I just thought this one was a bit of fun. There are 22 prowess themed cards, not including all your shocks and other direct damage that are out there. And this archetype has 12 uncommons and rares and mythics, of which 4 are significant bombs, as I've already shown you with your challenges, etc. I think you could easily be playing blue, red, green, card draw, prowess, just silly combination. You can see others, slipping in with black, red, sacrifice possibly to get more cards in the graveyard. I think it's a very open, and we've seen blue-red spells work well in Ikoria, and I think we're going to see it again. And then finally we've got red-white go wide / dog. Alpine Houndmaster is your uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, you can go and search for your Alpine Watchdog or your Igneous Cur, reveal them, put them in your hand, and then when it attacks you get +X, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. So it's all about getting loads of attacking creatures out and attacking. Pack Leader is your 2 mana 2/2. Other dogs get +1/+1, and when it attacks, prevent all combat damage that we dealt to dogs. You've also got Gadrak, the Crown Scourge, which can't attack unless you've got a bunch of artifacts, which is a bit odd, but you do get artifacts at the beginning of your end step for each non-creature token that died this turn. So, bit of sacrifice payoff possibly, bit of graveyard matters. I think personally, get a load of non-token creatures out with go wide, they die, off you go. But there's definitely some multiple archetypal synergy there. Sabira, absolutely. A hasty 2/3 that for 1, I mean, if you've not read this card, what a card. For 1, another target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked, and then for 1 in a red, you tap it and discard your whole hand. You're just going to draw a bunch of cards, which is just silly. Terror of the Peaks, your 5 mana 5/4 flyer that's hard to get rid of, and then at the bottom there, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, could be a token, this absolute monster deals damage equal to the creature's power to any target. So again, direct damage for sure. So that one, 23 cards work with it, as you can imagine, loads of go wide in white and obviously in red as well. There are 11 uncommons and mythics and rares and 3 big bombs, as you've seen, bunch of those in red. That's the specific archetypes. I think it's worth now touching on some other cards which don't necessarily specifically fit into an archetype, but overall you'd want to build with and around. I'm not going to go into detail about how you do that. A lot of this is going to come with play, but we'll just go into, you've got Ugin or Eugene, depending on which camp you sit in. It's an 8 mana bomb. It just deals damage, exiles permanents, you gain life and draw cards if you're ultimates. It's a silly card, but we love it and it's great to see it. Grim Tutor, you're going to be picking this up if you're in any way in black. Not only because if you're playing Paper Magic, it's worth a ton, but clearly you're not playing limited for that reason. It's going to just absolutely help you get whatever you need straight away. Massacre Wurm, again, you could argue it's sacrifice, but it doesn't hurt your own creatures. It's just your opponent's creatures. You could pull this out, bit of recursion, but it's not bad. A 6 mana 6/5, to be honest. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they lose life. It's just an all-round great bomb. Thieves Guild Enforcer. This is a rogue 1/1 for 1 with flash that mills your opponent, and whenever it mills your opponent when it lands or whenever other rogues lands. There are only 6 rogues in this set, so it's not exactly particularly likely, and they're not particularly good. As long as an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, then it has +2/+1 and Death Touch. It's not going to win you the game, but it is a strong card. Brash Taunter, couldn't find where I want to put this. Probably go wide, but there's definitely like a subset Goblin synergy going on. silly indestructible card that deals damage whenever it gets damage dealt to it. And then you can get it fighting things in order to get more damage dealt to it. But it is 5 mana, so depends where you want to put that. Another Goblin that would work well with it. Gains the ability of whatever the top card is. If it's a Goblin, you just play with that top card revealed. 2/2 for 2. Yeah, again, not bad in some sort of, obviously there's mono red aggro is in here and everything, but these are the specific subtypes. Another one, is this direct damage, i.e. spells, or is this go wide because of the power, or is this ferocious because of the power? It costs X less for the amount of power you've got across creatures, and it deals 6 damage to up to 2 target creatures or planeswalkers. So it could cost you 2 red to deal 6 damage. Just feels like a lot of hoops to jump through. Sporeweb Weaver, another one, doesn't really fit anywhere. Hexproof from blue, reach. When it's dealt damage, you gain 1 life. You create a Saproling, deal damage to yourself with shocks and things, maybe, or just block with it. It's just a decent card. Again, you're not going to build a deck around it. Chromatic Orrery, a 7 mana card that taps for 5 mana. Fixes all your mana if you're going to play multiple colours. And you can, if you're going to play a bunch of colours, draw cards off of it. Definitely one for a control-y kind of longer game. Probably not for limited. An interesting card that I didn't review all spoilers that came out because there was only a couple left, but this one's an interesting one. An uncommon 5 mana 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, if you've got 2 or more permanents that are non-token, non-land with the same name, you can create a 4/4 colourless artifact creature token. So if you've got 2 cards, if you're drafting cards and you've got a bunch, then this could come out with 2 4/4s, which becomes a crazy 5 mana spend. An interesting option. And then you've got your silly tap 2 artifacts, tap for 2, and is it card draw or is it in flyers? You've got options for sure. And the same here. Another card that draws cards, ramps for you. Everyone loves Solemn Simulacrum. So there you go. There's your 10 archetypes the Wizards are pushing in terms of this set. Do you think that they've fairly backed each of these archetypes? Personally, if it were me and I was drafting, I'd be leaning towards the green-blue card draw for sure. I'd be wanting to look at Ferocious, red-green Ferocious. I think blue-red Prowess, so you can definitely see in there you've got Temur being a really strong set. But you have also got the sort of red, blue, black, sacrifice, recursion, combination. I personally love blue-white flyers. I just don't feel like it's powerful enough at all. But we'll have to see how it all pans out. A lot of this comes down to how effective the commons can be. And there are loads of commons that are strong in terms of removal, which does make a bit of a difference. So there you go. I don't know what you think of this kind of video. Let me know. Did you find it interesting? Usually we do a video like this with a voiceover and lots of animation, but I feel like it can be a bit more organic to talk through like this. Was it a bit laboured? Let me know. Really appreciate your thoughts. Appreciate it's over a half-an-hour video, but definitely think that it's worth the conversation. Let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and if you want to pre-order any of these fantastic cards, then DoubleSleeved.co.uk, if you're in the UK, is the place to go. Absolutely brilliant price for sure. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.